Looks like the tables have turned. For all you MAGA cultists who keep saying the market slump doesn't matter because 20 and 30-year-olds have plenty of time to make up losses, seriously, what is your answer for people retiring now who thought they were good until your guy f***ed it up? What is your answer? Tough shit. Yes, my answer is tough shit. Just like your generation's answer to millennials and Zoomers who are unable to get a job, buy a home, have a family, or save our own retirement was tough shit. For Zoomers who haven't been able to save for retirement and buy a home. How old is the oldest Zoomer right now, by the way? How old Zoomer? Between 13 and 28 years old. Haven't been able to buy a house, start a family, and save for retirement yet. My goodness. This is your karmic reckoning, carefully curated from the moment you abandoned the unwritten obligation every generation has always had to leave the world a better place for the next. Why could people get a home in their 20s back in the day? Please explain. They really couldn't. The myth, the rumor that like everybody was able to afford a home at some point and everybody had, it's just not really true. People probably bought homes on average a bit earlier back in the day, but it's because there was less education required for the types of jobs that people are working now. So your life was starting a bit earlier. So now your life starts a bit later. But I mean, as a result of that, you're also, actually, I don't even know if they were buying earlier on average. Because when you track, unless there's been something new that's been released, that Redfin report that shows like the average age of home ownership or the average amount of people, the average amount of homes owned by the time a person reaches a certain age seem to be pretty equal at this point through all the generations. So we're going to be okay. Just fucking go. Nobody accounts for population aging as people are living much longer and they keep their homes for longer. Yeah, they'll die eventually, someday. You stole our jobs, you stole our houses, you stole our pensions, you stole our rents, you stole our futures, and you made the world infinitely worse for us in every way, every way. Also, you could have a boost in your portfolio and spend a historically unprecedented 20 years at the end of your entitled lives sitting on a beach in Florida. You know why millennials and Zoomers don't care about what's happening right now? It's not because we think we'll make it up later. It's because we've already accepted we will never make it up. This is a normal day for us. This has been our reality our entire fucking lives, LeMayo. Welcome, enjoy. Pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, skip the avocado toast, and print off a few resumes. Oh my God, life is so hard when you're 25 years old right now. Whew. Oof. It's a hard world out there. This person made a bad choice. What is this? Hold on.
I want to clarify something right off the start because I've already heard some rumors and some gossip. This was not a race thing, and this is not a political thing. Please do not comment if you do not know what happened.
Too late.
Try.
We are commenting.
This into a racial thing.
It is a race thing.
Do not politicize this. It's not. This is a human being thing. This person made a bad choice, and it affected both his family and my family forever. I want to clarify something right off the start because
this poor dad. Everybody wants to use his kid's death for their political memes, and he's not very happy about it. Understandably so. I'm not going to cry for people who are still up 500% over their whole lifetime or their whole timeline. Well, that's kind of how investing works, but okay. All of their houses went up in value 5 times over the last few years. God damn. My God. It's because we've accepted that we'll never make it up. That hit me so hard because it's true. Financial advisor asked me when I'd like to retire last year. I laughed. Retirement? What's that? Was my response. You're telling me that you're wealthy enough that you have a financial advisor? And you laughed? And then he clapped and everyone applauded when he asked you about retirement? What? What? How old is this guy? Do we have anything else? Any other news or memes that have happened today? Holy shit. She moved to the whitest and most far-right country in Europe and is surprised by how safe it is. Funny how that works.
Bro, so she got pissed after Trump got elected, and she moved her family to the whitest, most far-right country in Europe, and is shocked by how safe it is living somewhere with secure borders.
What an idiot.
I know. The memes make themselves.
True. Detransitioned. Oh, damn! Asmongold's subreddit just become just a pure far right subreddit now. Always was based. China has to ban the import of U.S. films into China in response to U.S. tariffs per Xinhua. Props to the Chinese president for saving his people from Snow White. Oh no, our poor rich millionaires living in Beverly Hills. Oh, woe is us. Damn, we really just want the whole fucking country to be fucking destroyed. How does Destiny not realize it's harder than ever to own a home? My understanding is right now there is difficulty in the housing markets. You guys you dramatically overestimate how difficult it is right now, and you dramatically underestimate how difficult it was in the future. I think it's something like 1/3 of Gen Z, of like older Gen Z people right now own the home that they have, or they have a mortgage on it or whatever. But in the past, which I think is lower than where it was before, the last time I checked, which I think was a few weeks ago, I looked this up, which is lower than, it might have been Gen X, which I think was at 40% instead of like 33%. But people have this assumption that back like 50 years ago, like 80-90% of Gen X or not Gen X, the baby boomers like owned their homes and shit. It's just not true. It's the home ownership rates have just never been that high. And the way that we're living is also changing quite a bit as well, in that our cities are becoming more dense and competition for housing is a lot more difficult. And Americans' standards or ideas for what we should be able to have in terms of housing is probably not compatible with any world where you have big cities. You're just never going to have the ability to just buy houses in New York City, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland that are in any place that's not far from fucking everything. But I think for a long time, because the United States had so much open space, for a variety of other reasons, Americans are just kind of like convinced that we can just do that indefinitely. 1/3 of Gen Z owns a home. You got a source for that, homie? Of older Gen Z. I can go find it, but as soon as I show it to you, you're going to tell me that the stats are wrong, or you're not going to believe it, or... Oh, this is what I read before. So right now, this is a month old, so I doubt much is changing from March. So young Americans are tracking behind their parents' generation. For instance, 33% of 27-year-olds own their home today. For baby boomers, it was 40%. Like, the housing market is difficult today, but you guys act like it's like fucking, like so fucked and completely destroyed or whatever. But it's not. It's more difficult. But also, this again, the standards as well probably have to change too, and people aren't happy about that. But like, Americans think they can have huge cities with things to do that they want to live in, but they also have like houses. Because for an American, having an apartment means you're a fucking failure. And as long as you have that mentality, or that mentality has to disappear from the American mind. I don't know how you make that mentality disappear. We also need all the baby boomers to die too, so. But I imagine the early investments that people make also into things like education and everything are higher too. So that probably pushes back. Because I wonder if the average like high school grad buys his first house before the average like college grad these days, just because of the additional time spent training, educating. What is the best metric for how strong the middle class actually is, or where we struggle to get a good feeling for how the common man is doing? I don't know, because people define middle class, I think, in a lot of different ways. I think there's just like markers you look for. Like if you have a single parent working, that's like a strong indicator of middle class or upper middle class. But I mean, otherwise, it can vary so much. Different people like different things in their life. It's difficult to say, I think. There's not like a strict definition for it. Apartments are more expensive than a home. I mean, kind of, but also not really. But also, all those arguments are really retarded. What I mean, you're paying a premium to smooth out price volatility when you have an apartment. So you pay slightly. You're going to pay slightly more over a long period of time, but you don't have to incur a significant shock in cost, such as when you have to replace like major repairs or whatever for a house that you do in an apartment. I don't get it. There's so many affordable houses all over the U.S. and Gen Z and elder millennials have no kids to worry about, just live in an affordable place. Yeah, but people don't want to move to. People don't want to move to those places, which is fair. But then obviously again the expectation just has to change for, I guess, like the kind of place you'll be living in if you want to live in a major city. Jesus, and not live like on the outskirts or in some suburb. Okay. Frustrated New York City residents began hurling trash from their buildings at pro-Palestinian protesters. Damn. I think people would be fine living on the outskirts if we had decent public transportation. Having to pay for 2 Ubers every time you want to go out for drinks sucks nuts. That sounds like a really expensive night out, number one. And I don't know why you would have to pay for an Uber if you want to go out. But okay, number one. Number two, yeah, Americans have to change their concept of like public transportation as well. But it's so that they can get drunk. Oh, okay. My bad. Back in my day, we had a designation. It was called a designated driver, but I guess maybe those don't exist anymore. So instead of one guy carpooling and saving $500 in Uber charges, I guess everybody has to Uber. Gotcha. Based. All right. Okay. Nobody's sober in this economy. True. So Destiny, I really think we didn't lose acquisition power. I think it suffered a little bit, but not anywhere near as substantially as we have. You know what the worst part is I think to some extent, I think the tariffs and all that shit, I think maybe it will help a little. Who knows? I think the problem is that you guys don't have any concept of like lifestyle improvements or like actual like standard of living improvements at all. It's just this like weird comparison towards this like hyperfixation of retarded shit in the past, and then like screaming at other people online, and you think your lives are fucked and miserable and horrible and terrible. And for a lot of them they are, but it's not because of the fact that you can't like buy a house when you're 24. I think it has more to do with other loss of meaning and purpose. But don't worry, when we return to the factories, guys, I'll be there on the floor right next to you, okay? We'll find meaning again in our lives. It'll be based. Also, if you want to argue with me here, if you wrote the thing I wrote for the subreddit weekly pragmatic papers thing, here. I think we're doing this on Friday. Make sure to sign up. You can argue with me as I ardently defend billionaires. Paste, clean coal. Wait, let me load my science. What do you think will happen to the interest rates at the end of the year? I have no fucking idea. It's going to depend on inflation and the job market. You can watch the Flagrant episode with Chamath. Oh, this guy's like a huge Trump fan now, right?
Hello, everyone.
The Flagrant dude? I feel like I saw dumb shit. Is he actually going to accurately explain? I feel like this... Is it Chamath? I feel like I fought with this guy once on Twitter. And initially he disagreed with me, but then he saw me be like pro-Israel and then he agreed with me. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't even know. I don't remember.
Hello, everybody.
Like I thought he was like a schizo conspiratorial random dude. But then I saw him talk about something else.
Stock market is nosediving faster than Conor McGregor at a Colombian cookout.
Chamath?
People are concerned, anxious, terrified. So, we've asked someone to come on the podcast to calm your nerves, put you at ease. No, not her. We've asked our richest friend, Chamath Pineapple Porta Potty Platypus, the former owner of the Warriors, one of the earliest hires at Facebook, a legit billionaire, and the host of the biggest business podcast in the world, All In, if he would take some time away from surfing on the top of a train to explain why the stock market looks like Saxon Ratliff the morning after a sibling stroke-off. We're going to find out the real end game for Trump's tariffs, what happens if they don't work, and why we might already be in a recession. Indulge in this bonus Flagrant episode.
Why don't we just start at the tariffs in general? What exactly is Trump doing? What is best case scenario? What is worst case scenario? And then what are your personal thoughts?
Let's look at your Air Force Ones or your Dunks that you guys are wearing there, or your Converse. Those things are made, or Jordans. Those things are made outside of the United States, even though the company that makes them is an American company. And what happens is they're made over there, and then they're shipped to the United States, and then they're sold to you guys somehow, right? And you would think that that's all fine and good because you're like, well, hold on, this is an American company, I'm supporting an American company. And it turns out that the details are a little bit more complicated than that. So starting in about the year 2000, what happened was there was this, everybody thought that the right thing to do was to push every country in the world to this form of capitalism. And they looked at countries like China and they were like, how do we make China more capitalist? And you would say, well, why would we do that? And the governing logic at the time was, if they're more capitalist, they'll also become more democratic. If they are more democratic, they are more predictable the way that we normally think about countries. So let's not repeat a Cold War. Let's not repeat maybe some other political regime in the 40s or 50s or 60s. And so what happened was we let China into the WTO, the World Trade Organization. And what that allowed corporations to do is basically an enormous form of arbitrage. So let's say that those Jordans were made in the United States and you were paying a worker $25 an hour to work on a line to make that shoe. And then you would send it to Foot Locker and sell it. I'm just being very simple just to kind of explain this example. But now, instead of having to pay sort of any typical form of taxes, Nike, after the year 2000, was able to ask the question, where else could I make this Jordan? And the Chinese raised their hand and they said, hey guys, we have these really great factories. We have extremely good workers and we can do it for much cheaper than 25 bucks an hour. And so what does Nike do? They send the job over there. Take that one narrow example and apply it across every industry you can imagine, from shoes to iPhones and everything in between. And what has essentially happened over the last 25 years is we have hollowed out an enormous part of the middle class economy in the United States. And we've explained it away by saying, hey, we don't want to do that kind of work. Instead, we're going to, you know, like all of us, like we'll do a podcast or, you know, somebody will be a consultant. Like you'll just go up the stack, right?
Wait, real quick. Can you put recyclers on Novice?
They'll say up the stack. And so over the last 25 years, that's been happening. And all of these other countries have benefited.
Would you be willing to do a deep dive into climate change to see if we're actually pretty chill? No, I don't give a fuck about doing a deep dive into climate change. I believe that climate change is like a serious issue, but we are so fucking far away. Climate change is like on the bottom of list of things that we can even remotely impact right now.
From America's largesse. And the reason you can say that is we are the big buyer of record for everything, right? We have the largest economy. The way our economy works is we are all buying shit, all kinds of shit, all manner of it, from that water bottle to that shirt to that hat. 80% of our economy is just consumers buying stuff. And the rest of the world makes an enormous amount of money by feeding that beast. And so you would say, okay, well, what's wrong with that? Now the cost of Jordans is much cheaper. The cost of that, you know, those jeans are cheaper. Life is good. Except it's not, it's more complicated than that, which is then when we turn around and we try to sell our product into those same countries, instead of it being allowed to just come in so that, you know, I'll make an example. Let's say that hat is made in the United States and we want to sell it to somebody in Cambodia or Vietnam. The same way that those dunks enter the United States with no tax, we would expect that that hat can go into Cambodia and Vietnam with no tax, but that turns out to not be the case.
And why is that? Are they trying to protect local businesses?
It's a great question. I think that for every country, the answer to that question is different, but it typically starts with how...
Fuck, okay, I'm sorry, like, I get triggered. This is like an old person thing. I just can't, I'm so sorry, I can't do this. Like, when standard of living stuff increases, you guys think that there are things that like are actually requirements to survive. Like you can't even fathom, like just reading this guy's comments about, he's mad that I say things wrong. I'm scrolling up and I'm reading. He says, what do you mean? Uber drives you to go out, LOL. No one wants to be the sober one going out to party. You can't just group everyone into the dumbass category because we're pissed. Maybe the shit we complain about is justified, LOL. Like, you do know that people have lived for so long without Uber, right? Like my generation, we survived with no Uber. We found a way to do it. But like now that Uber is available, now you think that it's an actual requirement that every single week your friend group has to spend collectively $1,000 to go out drinking? That before you even factor in the cost of alcohol, that every person in your friend group has to pay an Uber to go out? Like that's, yeah, it's just, but like you assume that is like that's a bare minimum threshold. You wouldn't even consider that like a middle class thing. You think that's like every American should be entitled to be able to Uber every single weekend to go drink, or at any point, maybe not every single one, but you're like, this is like a new thing that everybody has to have. And it's like, Jesus, like, yeah, there are issues for sure, but my God, like people have survived with so many different things that you now have access to that you consider like fundamental requirements of your daily existence. And we managed to get along just fine without these, and you pay more money for them and everything now too. But then you also want like the house at the early age and no college and everything. It's like, Jesus, fucking chill. They were way more lenient on DUIs for a long time, though. Only if you could outrun the cop, okay?
How can we generate revenue for ourselves? I don't think they have a competitive, you know, New York Yankees hat manufacturer in Vietnam, for the record. But it's just a policy that allows them to make money off of the United States in two ways, right? They make money by making stuff there, sending it to here where we all buy it. And
that wasn't my point, but go off, King. This is literally what you're typing about. I think we have a misunderstanding. I'm not a Republican. I just don't like when Destiny says certain things aren't really that bad because I can see in real time what is it. How old are you? If you're 25, like, no offense, or it's not even offensive. Yeah, everything around you sucks. No shit. You're young. You have your health and your fun and your friends, but like you have no wealth. You have no assets. You've got a ton of debt from school. Like you're fucking just getting your shit together. You're starting to get it. Yeah, no shit. When you're young, you don't have access to like a whole bunch of fucking crazy shit in life yet. Everything is pretty rough. You're literally just starting out. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. What the fuck? What? And then guess what? Remember, I want you to engrave this in your fucking mind right now. Engrave it into your mind. in 50 years, assuming Donald Trump doesn't blow us all up or World War III doesn't happen, in 50 years, you're going to be looking back on this time, remembering how great it was, and it was fun, and you had access, you could go out and work, and like you could do all these, you were healthy, you went out with your friends, and then you're going to be old with sitting on your wealth and your nest egg. You'll be like, oh, fuck, now it's, oh my God, like things were so much better back then. But everybody does this. People that were from the fucking Soviet Union do this shit where they look back like, yeah, when I was younger, things were so much better. But yeah, when you're young and you're looking around, financially, everything around you is fucked. Of course, you're all children. Of course, everything's fucked. That's what it's like being in your teens or 20s.
Dollars go back. And then they make money in a different way, which is whenever we try to sell our products there, they can tax it on the way in.
And then why would we tolerate that?
I think what the logic was back to what I said earlier.
Also, don't confuse me. Like, there's nothing wrong with complaining about shit too. And I don't think that adolescence or young adulthood should be a hazing ritual where everything that the older generation suffered is now a thing that every younger generation suffered too. There are definitely ways we can improve the world, and there are ways that we can improve things for younger people, and we should. You should fight for those improvements. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if you think that housing is too expensive, it probably is. It's gotten more expensive for people, and it's harder to access even apartments and shit in big cities. Like, these things are definitely gotten more challenging for sure. Where you lose me is this. Back in the boomer day, everybody could buy a house when they were 25, and one dad could work at the car factory, and he had 6 kids, and all of them had fucking new Teslas and PS1s, and it's like, bro, things were never that crazy. Okay, that's not true. Okay,
there was this thought that America is doing really well. We can allow a little bit of this leakage because of the quote-unquote greater good. The greater good being, let's get these countries out of poverty, let's get them, embracing capitalism, democracy. I think it's a combination of benevolence as well as there was some strategic rationale. Like sometimes you could make a claim that allowing these countries to profit was like a national security thing, right? Like, hey, they'll be there for us if we ever get into a spat with XYZ other countries. So there was a whole host of complex reasons, but the net result, Andrew, was that this dynamic was happening. But it'd been happening for a long time.
Question. And we can move on. Is it possible that the countries were trying to protect the things that were...
Didn't you buy your house at 19? I think it was either 19 or 20, but like... I don't know why you think that like you're going to bring out my own life as an example for how you're going to own me or get me. I financed it with an FHA loan, which was like 3% down, and I fucking quit school. I quit college to work 60 hours a week to do it. You can still get a house like I did if you want to do that. And I bought my house in South O off of fucking 42nd and like fucking Center. No, further south than that. It was 42nd and L, Hillsdale in Omaha, Nebraska. That opportunity is still available to you right now, but you don't want to do that. That's dog shit. You want to go to college and you want to get your degree so you get a real job so you can afford a better place, right? Which is fine. But yeah, if you want to do my life, you can do my life. You can go do my life right now. Quit school, flunk out of school, start working 60 hours a week somewhere, and then go FHA loan with a girlfriend, because I also did this with my girlfriend at the time, and then go buy a house together. You can do that right now in a shitty city, in a shitty part of a shitty city.
Were made there. In other words, like, we have all these cool products that are made in America. Obviously, it's very sexy in a bunch of these third world countries. They're like, listen, we can't let the mom and pop businesses or even the corporations that are thriving in this country be outcompeted, if you will, by the American businesses.
Possibly, but then, I would say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It can't be a one-way ratchet on globalism and free trade, where it's like, you're going to take our stuff, but we're not going to take your stuff.
I agree with you. I'm just trying to find the justification for the country. Like,
I think to be honest with you, it's probably driven a lot by revenue. It's like it was tolerated. Nobody pushed back. Nobody pushed back.
Right.
Because again, we would say, yes, it's happening, but, and some politicians.
I can understand your perspective, but it's hard when I worry about money all the time, and we are supposed to be middle class. The stress of it over years is exhausting. What are your worries about money if you say you're middle class? What does that mean to you? Talk to me about what that means to you.
Would insert this statement about democracy and capitalism and long-term national security or what have you as the justification.
And then Americans, we don't want any tariffs because it affects our businesses, right? Like, Apple doesn't want any tariffs. I'm sure Uniqlo doesn't want any tariffs. I'm sure Levi's doesn't want anything because it affects the amount of money that they can make. So they're essentially...
Nobody would want any tariff in an ideal scenario. But now you have to think about, like, what is the government of the United States' responsibility?
Totally. I'm just saying, like, why the private sector hasn't pushed back. And the reason they haven't pushed back is because they would be the ones losing money.
I think they are pretty violently pushing back. Everybody that hasn't been exempted, I think, is pushing back. So, and what they're trying to point out is like, hey, listen, like...
I have no savings. I hate middle class people. God, how old are you? I hate them. Don't talk. Never mind. Just don't. I can't. I just can't because I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I'm so sorry. And it's not even, it's not even fair. It's not even fair. My attitude is not even fair. Just forget it. I love all of you.
These tariffs have a real price.
No, I meant why they wouldn't push back about the unfairness that had happened over the last 25 years. Like, for example, Apple, that wasn't tariffed at all, wasn't going, hey, you know what? China's tariffing us. Maybe we should tariff them because it would hurt their bottom line.
We should do a Caleb Hammer section or segment on stream where I bring people on and we go over your finances, okay? Because I want to know. I'm curious, okay? I just want to know, all right?
How many Chinese can afford to buy a $3,000 iPhone versus how many Americans can buy a $3,000 iPhone? And the reality is that when you factor in, again, this goes back to what I said before, do not underestimate the absolute gargantuan largesse and kick-assedness of America. Like, it's easy to slag it.
Are you even paying attention to this video? Yeah, Chamath is just giving the fucking retarded answer to everything that has been said a billion times before. I don't know why we're listening to this. What do we...
First among equals country. On every dimension, culturally, artistically, economically, militarily, in a snap of a finger.
Can you give an example of what that would be? You're talking about like the screws that go into the plane? Like,
no,
how
much more important than that. It's like, let's just say that, I'll use an example that I think we could all relate to. We need to electrify as much of the United States as possible. Okay? Meaning we need more electricity, not less. We barely have enough electricity for all of the needs that we have. Okay, fair? Yep. There's brownouts, there's all these.
I genuinely don't know. Are there energy issues in the United States related to brownouts that aren't related to like disasters? Like I know that California will do rolling outs, but isn't that just related to like weather issues? Or are there actual places in the US that are like running out of energy? Does this happen?
Sure. There's all these, it's all nuts, okay? We need more energy, okay. One of the things that we need more energy for is electric cars. I'll just use that as an example. Electric cars need an electric motor. So far, so good. All of that stuff can be American. But inside the electric motor, the way that the electric motor works is that there's a magnet that spins really quickly. That magnet is made from something called rare earths. There's nobody right now that can really secure a meaningful pipeline to those rare earths except through the Chinese. They're incredibly good at it. They're incredibly sophisticated. And they have a top-down way of organizing that market. That's an example. Let's say that you need batteries, not like the simple Duracell that you buy at Target, but like the big batteries that can store energy when it's made or whatever. There are two companies that know how to do this at scale. They're both Chinese. And you can go on and on down the line in every critical market where America needs to be able to take care of itself, right? Under all weather conditions, we have become very fragile. So tariffs have this dual-pronged impact. Prong number one is it starts to realign the world order. But prong number two is that it allows us to start taking back control of a lot of these markets so that we do the hard work so that we can rely on ourselves. Otherwise, if something bad were to happen, there's like a lot of really bad outcomes here where we cannot fend for ourselves. We can't make the vaccines we need, okay? We can't make the technological equipment we need. We can't make the computers we need. We can't make the chips we need.
So, sorry, follow-up question. Of the tariffs, I actually agree in theory with everything you're saying and have for a while. How do you feel about the system? I'm seeing a lot of things about the calculations they came up with, and like it seems kind of haphazardly thrown together. Can you explain that? Is that true? What do you think?
I think the way they did it was very clever. They made one mistake, which is in language, which is they put the word.
Oh my God, he's an actual cum guzzling dick suck, dude. Why do these people? Why not like invite somebody that actually knows what they're talking about? Like you probably can reach out and just get like an actual economist, and not these fucking crypto fashy fucking losers who are just obsessively rebalancing their portfolios and hedging on the fucking failure of the U.S. economy while they make money off of whatever corrupt bullshit crypto coin they sell. Or how the fuck does this loser make his money? Or why is this guy even on here to talk finance or economics? What does this guy do? Is he a billionaire guy, the Chamath guy? I feel like I hear his name a lot. Oh my God, it's so cringe.
Word reciprocal, and they should have put
or at least like bring on somebody else to argue with him. It's just like cringe argument after cringe argument, like beamed down from
proportional. So, you know, Akaash, if I sell you $1,
yeah,
and you send to me $5, the right way to think about what a tax would be well, there's a $4 differential, so let's make it proportional to how much I'm giving you and you're giving me.
Like that's retarded. That doesn't make any sense what he just said. He's actually like trying to fucking use logic to justify this stupid shit.
The formulas that they used were proportional formulas. It got caught up in all of this like English language semantic nonsense.
Got it. Okay.
And then people who
He's the CEO of Social Capital. Okay.
To run with that, try to exploit the word and try to create confusion. But, you know, the simple way to think about it is, if I'm here and you're here, the whole goal of the tariff is to just do this. Make it proportional. Right. Make these things proportional. That's the math. That math does work.
They were saying in some of the, I saw an article that was quite critical, and they said it was haphazardly done because they were just matching trade deficits.
No, so here's another thing let's debunk that.
So that is exactly what they were doing. And even this guy with the layman's understanding is closer to the correct explanation than the unbelievable fucking Olympic tier dick sucking this Chamath guy is doing to defend his daddy.
Well, so
yeah, you know, can you explain the trade deficit between two countries and how that works?
So how does a trade deficit work? So for example, like let's just say between the United States and China, they send us $10 of goods. We send them $1 of goods. That's a $9 deficit, right? We're bringing in more than we send out. Okay. So there's an entire economy of Chinese companies that get supported with the $10 of money that we give them. There's only $1 that benefits American companies. That's a trade imbalance. It creates a deficit. Now, by the way, it's not that a deficit is bad.
Oh, there we go. We're kind of sort of, oh, wait, it's not bad? Then why the fuck are we orienting the entire New World Order around trying to get rid of them?
Okay, sometimes you want a deficit, sometimes you want a surplus, but you want to be able to pick and choose where you want to be at any time with any country, right? That would make sense. That's like, hey man, I'm not going to just take this at face value. I'm going to evaluate the conditions, and I'm just going to tweak the knobs every now and then to make sure that I know where I'm at. Some countries may be so strategically important, we're like, you know what, we're going to run deficits with you. That's cool. You guys build up some stuff, but on the back end, let's talk about some other deals we could do. Give us some critical things that we need. And we're cool running a deficit. Some other countries where maybe we don't get as much from them as we have historically or we should run a surplus. But let me just make sure that you guys also know one other thing about these last couple days. A lot of people started to try to make a meme out of like, oh, look, this country's only got penguins. You know, that country only, you know, is in the middle of nowhere.
And now he's going to talk about dodging. He's going to talk about how you can dodge tariffs by exporting to other countries, even though that wasn't the point of bringing up the penguin shit. The point of bringing up the penguin shit was to show that that the admin was arbitrarily choosing who to tariff, and that this formula wasn't being applied in any way to actually measure the tariffs that other countries had on us. But he's about to do that. Well, they could ship to other countries and dodge tariffs.
Here's a really important thing to understand what has happened over the last 25 years. Every single time anybody has tried to fix these imbalances, what companies were able to do was just to go to a different country that wasn't affected and basically mule
like
their
the Penguin Islands, dude. Yeah.
way into America. Okay.
So if you levy these taxes on every single country, they won't be able to do that.
You close all the loopholes.
Got it. So it seems like an imbalance when you throw it on Lesotho, but you're really doing it as a preemptive measure so that all the manufacturing doesn't go from Cambodia.
Because a whole bunch of manufacturing stuff was about ready to be set up in Madagascar. They were like on the verge of having it all set up, and thank God we tariffed everybody so they couldn't use the sub-Saharan African loophole.
To Lesotho overnight.
And the thing with that is like, it's not like they're going to build a factory there.
Right.
Like, this argument is defeated with one question. Oh, they can just ship it anywhere? Then why don't we just have the exact same tariff on every single fucking country? Like, if that's the case, then why do we have 100% tariffs on China and 40% tariffs on any country near them? Wouldn't they just ship it to that country, then ship it right to us? Like, it's so stupid. All of these arguments are self-defeating. Don't care. I don't care. It's all a meme.
They may just use it as a way station.
It's all a meme.
You know, the plane lands, hop, skip, and a jump. Now you get a form that goes, boom, made in Lesotho, boom, to the United States.
So you make it in China, send it to Lesotho. We buy it from Lesotho. There's no tariff on Lesotho because,
because we all know that's a country that has the capacity that doesn't even have access to the ocean, by the way. Can they even ship anything? It's a fucking landlocked country. What the fuck?
Specific thing that really happened that exposed this was, again, in COVID, you know, and just a little bit before, Mexico became like an enormous
what are they talking about?
Way to kind of work around a bunch of the Chinese tariffs. You would just basically send the goods to Mexico. They would do what's called self-attestation, which is basically saying, yeah, it's made in Mexico. And now you get under a totally different regime. You avoid a lot of taxes and other stuff. And so, you know, I think what they were trying to do is basically say, all right, folks, hit the pause button. We saw what you did the last time. We're just going to make sure that there are no loopholes. And look, like, so maybe the question is like, what do you do from here? You know, like in Godfather, there was like that scene where like all the families come together and they're basically trying to like negotiate, like, all right, what's the detente, and like Michael Corleone runs that. It's not a perfect analogy, but I think what's going to happen now is there's an opportunity for all of these world leaders to have a very different conversation. And here's what I mean. We pay a ton of money into all of these like globalist organizations. WHO,
Oh,
World Health Organization,
the
supposed to do some
NGOs.
healthcare
Say
stuff.
NGO, say NGO.
NATO,
Please, say NGO.
supposed to do a bunch of defense
Say
stuff.
NGO so I can come.
The United Nations, supposed to do a bunch of governance stuff. IMF, supposed to do a bunch of money
Just
stuff.
say NGO.
World
I just need to
Bank,
hear the
supposed to do a
abbreviation.
bunch of other
I just need to hear the
money stuff.
abbreviation so I can come,
Right? We pay into
please.
these organizations massively. And it's not clear that any of this shit works.
God damn it.
Okay, just to be honest. And so there is an opportunity to sort of say, hey guys, if we were just starting this club in 2025, what are the rules of membership? What would the expectations be? What are you going to do? What am I going to do? What are you going to pay? What am I going to pay? You know, but right now, again, it's kind of like you go to dinner, you know, Andrew pays, we're like, we'll Venmo you tomorrow. Money doesn't show up. And you're just like, guys, this is like, after years of this, you're just like, okay, come on, stop the madness here.
Is there a concern that in a time of trade hostility, China could come in and basically, you know, broker more friendly trade deals with other...
Wait, hold on real quick. So if I manufacture quality modules, oh, no. I would have to have all the ingredients the same quality.
countries and America could lose its global position?
Yeah, I think that is a risk. The question is, what does that deal look like? You know, look, my personal opinion is that I think that it's basically this. There are two main superpowers for the next 100 years.
Yeah,
us and China.
Okay.
And I think we, on the margins, have a more compelling deal to do than China does. And the reason is because we have these 330 million Americans who are absolute kingmakers. And I think you have to take advantage of that. The Chinese are incredibly strong. They're incredibly bright. But they have
Production
headwinds
bonus to the
too.
new
And, you know, like
building.
nothing's perfect. Like their population is cratering. That population is going to halve in the next like 50 years. So China has to figure out some very complicated things for itself. So it's not like China has like some perfect deal that it can offer the world. So there's give and takes on both sides. But yeah, they're going to try to do it. And they're going to try to do the best job of getting countries convinced. That's why we have to have some amount of bargaining chips, right? Like if you show up to Europe and you're like, let's do a deal. Is a better deal done when Europe feels like you're serious? Or if Europe feels like, well, I mean, you know, they've paid our way for the last 50 years.
Yeah, why would they stop? Yeah.
So you have to like, you know, it's almost like it's tough, but like you have to have some reasonable expectations here that, you know, that there's like a decorum. So I think that it comes down to the quality of these deals. To your point, like what is the actual deal? And I think the thing to remember is there is no country in the world that can buy stuff the way Americans buy shit.
Right.
I'm serious. I mean, like truly.
It's like a lot of people can make shit, but you need an economy that is going to consume, and you can't really grow that overnight.
You can't. It's true. We have had, you know, a lot of practice in making money as a country, but also spending money.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should forget that.
To piggyback on Mark's though, the way that Trump is implementing these tariffs across the board, are there any guardrails that can prevent China from just going to everybody and be like, okay, they're applying at least a 10% tariff on you, I'll either give you 5% or free trade?
Okay, it's a really good question. So now you go to the tactics of it. Whoever it is, let's say it's us or it's China, and let's just say that we're going to pitch Europe on why, you know, you should go one way or the other. At the end of the day, when you're doing deals like this, you have to show a P&L, right? A profit and loss statement. Meaning, once all the fancy words are done and all the, you know, cameras go out of the room, this gets to the brass tacks of a spreadsheet that says, here's how much money you will make by working with us. And this is where there is a very clever deal, I think, for Trump to get done, which is the following, which is to essentially say that there is sort of like this new global trading alliance. And, you know, according to a set of rules, in joining the club, pay your proportional share, right? Pay your membership dues on time. And there's a way that you can have access to this incredible market. That would be, so when you do that P&L, right? And you get a bunch of Western countries that align with that, because you have to remember on an economic basis, look, we're 8 billion people in the world, we're all equal, but economically there is a hierarchy, okay? And so it's America at the top, then, you know, you have the G8 countries, G7 countries, the rest of them, right? And then it goes down there and you can just rank this. And so the more of these countries you have in this new alliance, the companies that work through that lens will just make more money.
Like a trading NATO, so to speak?
I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. It's like, exactly like in the modern, like, look.
A trading NATO. Almost like a free trade agreement that multiple countries could engage in. If only we'd ever thought about that before. If only Trump himself had negotiated one of these.
Like for the next 100 years, do we really think the solution for protection is like a tank You know what I mean? Like a tank is like 70 years old. It's like 100. It's like it just doesn't make sense. The real protection is what you said, which is like economic cooperation.
Yeah, aligned interests.
Cooperation.
Aligned interests.
Oh, isn't that kind of the exact opposite of?
And a bunch of drones. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Do you feel like the tariffs actually address the root problem of bringing jobs, like specifically middle class jobs that have been lost to China, like shoe manufacturing, back to the United States, or is it mostly a
What did he just say? Middle class jobs like shoe manufacturing? Wait, what?
Aligned interests.
But
And a bunch of drones. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Do you feel like the tariffs actually address the root problem of bringing jobs, like specifically middle class jobs that have been lost to China, like shoe manufacturing, back to the United States, or is it mostly a political tool to get?
What the fuck are we talking about? What? What, like shoe artisans? Like people that are making fucking... I don't even know what high quality shoes are called.
These rates to be more, have more parity.
I think step one is the rates, and step two is what kind of jobs come back to the United States. I think is still unclear, but there are a lot of really good trade type jobs.
Cobblers. Okay, I was gonna say cobblers, but I thought that was pony porn. Am I not? Am I? Did I just completely invent that in my mind? That's, oh, those are cloppers. My bad. Okay. What was I thinking? What was I thinking?
I'll give you an example. And in the United States, from 2017 to like 2022, a quarter of all of the people that work for power utilities is eligible to retire. Take their full pension. Why do you think that happened? So what do you think has happened since 2022? I'll tell you. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Power lines, transformers. There's more wildfires because of utilities. The average experience of these folks have gone down. The amount of brownouts and outages have gone up. Those are jobs that can pay 80, 90, 100, 120, $130,000 a year. These are good jobs. There's just no people to do them. 80, 90, 100, 120, $130,000 a year. These are good jobs. There's just no people to do them. I'll give you a different example.
Listen to what you're saying. Those are good jobs, but there are no people to do them. So why are we trying to import even more jobs to this country? We don't even have people to do these jobs. What are we talking about?
Build nuclear submarines. We need 100,000 people to build those submarines. All kinds.
Our unemployment is like 4.5%. Where are you getting these people from? You want to deport 20 million illegal immigrants right now? Where are these people coming from?
This stuff, electronics to, metalwork to whatever. They can barely find 1,000. And there's like all kinds of stuff. So your question is the right one, which is what kind of jobs will come back? Or what kind of industries could we have that we don't have enough of? And this is where, look, now you're starting to talk about like a lot of complicated social policy as well, because part of why we don't have people is like a bunch of us were tricked to like go to university and get $200K in debt to take a degree in art history, which was stupid.
Who do you think is doing these high skilled jobs of managing like power grids and shit? You think these are just high school grads? Or do you think that we manage our electricity system today in the United States by just having people that just climb up on poles all day? Like, these are probably all like engineering related jobs. Or does he really think liberal arts majors have destroyed the United States so much? And if that's the case, are you going to ban those majors? How do the tariffs help? It's just like,
instead you should have just gone to a trade school, made $150K a year and had a good life. But then in order to have a good life, you needed to live in a reasonable city that had like...
Should have? Who are you to tell people what they should go to school for? If somebody wants to go fucking get a basket weaving degree, then fucking, God bless. Like, what are we going to dictate? What are we actually turning into China now? We're going to tell people what they have to study?
Not stupid housing policy, right? So like, there's a cascade of all of these issues. So it's probably a little too early to say that exact job that's in China is going to be here, but we don't need that job. But there are different kinds of jobs necessarily.
Sorry, I'm slow. How do tariffs help the examples you gave of infrastructure?
Oh, these guys are doing the drunken swordsman. Like they don't realize it, but they're asking actually very difficult to answer questions, because if they're not like politically super bought into the whole Trump shit, which I don't know they are, and they're just like genuinely trying to understand this and they're asking questions, none of this shit is going to make any fucking sense.
It would seem infrastructure is irrespective of a tariff. We could build up power lines, we could build up any of these things without a tariff on.
No, almost, yeah. He's on the right track, but actually it would be even cheaper to build that infrastructure because we could import it for even cheaper than it would cost us to domestically manufacture it. So we don't have those jobs right now when the supplies and the import for that stuff would be even cheaper, but you're saying we're going to make all of that more expensive and we're going to somehow get people working in those jobs and taking care of all of our infrastructure? How?
England.
All of the things that we need, again, it goes back to sort of what I said before, like all of the things that we need, we don't have a really great way of making them here. Okay. And so we're like in this very circular...
Who's going to make it?
...argument all the time. So we need to have some internal resiliency. You know what I mean? Like we need to have like a rainy day fund. We just need to have some money in the savings account in case, shit hits.
What the fuck are you talking about? Money in the savings account? I thought this guy was a financial expert. Why are you talking like a retard? Like, speak like a normal fucking finance understander or an economics explainer. What do you...
And we don't have that right now.
Was there?
So I'll give you an example. Like in energy, okay? Like
Oh, give an example. Okay, instead of answering the other question, which he had no answer for because his position is completely and totally incoherent.
very, very, very reductively, the world is going to be decided. Like, meaning, like, if this was like the NBA regular season, okay, we're entering the playoffs. Who wins a championship? It's very simple. The person that controls AI and the person that has the best military. That's it. And when you say it that way, you're like, okay, there's all these things that we need to do for AI as an example. Okay, you're like, well, we need like infinite power for AI.
Okay, we need to win the next generation of stuff. We need AI and the military. Okay. Now, the United States, according to Trump and this dipshit, I'm sorry, this dick suck, have been taken advantage of by the rest of the world for the past 50 years. Okay. In that case, all right, so we need AI and military to succeed. Since the U.S. has been getting raped by the world, I should be able to find another country, or at least multiple countries even, with better military. So who has the best military in the world as a result of the continual rape the United States has suffered? Okay, well, that's weird, because it seems like the answer there is the U.S. Okay, well, who's getting the most investment into AI? Where are, like, most of the AI companies looking? Okay, well, China is trying to fight here, but it seems like that's also the United States. So isn't it weird that the exact two things that you would try to excel in are the two things that the United States is already, like, the world leader in? But supposedly people have been getting raped for the past 50 years. Like, none of this makes sense. Literally none of this makes any sense. It's so stupid.
Okay, well, how do you get power? Oh, well, let's just do nat gas. Okay, great. And immediately you realize, oh, hold on, nat gas turbines, it takes a turbine, right, to make energy out of nat gas, is so backlogged because none of it comes from America.
Okay, there we go.
We cannot.
Okay. I thought we were literally a net exporter of energy now, but... Or I should look for... Okay, Russia exports the most. Well, that was until 2022. Oof. And as of 2023, the U.S. was the world's leading exporter of natural gas. Now, this is Statista. And I don't know if I trust this fucking website. The world's largest liquefied natural gas exporter in 2024. But somehow...
As an example. Okay, you're like, well, we need like infinite power for AI. Okay, well, how do you get power? Oh, well, let's just do nat gas. Okay, great. And immediately you realize, oh, hold on, nat gas turbines, it takes a turbine, right, to make energy out of nat gas, is so backlogged because none of it comes from America.
Okay, there we go.
We cannot turn it on until 2030.
Oh, does he just mean the turbines are backed up? We can't have Does he think that the only thing we're waiting for is... I've never even heard this claim before. I don't even know how I would begin to... Okay.
Okay, so now, Akaash, tell me, how are we supposed to win the NBA Finals against China when they have everything?
Yeah.
They can make everything.
Yeah.
And we can't yet.
Yeah.
So we're kind of...
Are we just going to wait 5 years and hope it solves itself?
Are we forcing our own hand to develop these?
Okay, so then let's assume... The problem is, even if I assume all these things are true, it's still retarded. Okay, so it's backed up on turbines. We can't order any, I guess. Let's assume that that's true. So now we're going to make all of them even more expensive? Like, how does that make any sense? None of this makes any sense. None of this is even internally consistent.
Industries?
I think so.
Got it. Okay, so part of it is forcing our own hand to develop these industries, making it too...
You can develop them right now if you want. You can do it right now if you want to do this. There's a reason why we don't, and it's because it's hella expensive. You could subsidize it if you wanted. Why not do that? Why not continue to import it and have them, come in on the cheap if we can, and then subsidize a turbine manufacturing industry? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Too expensive to consume from other places, and also making it too expensive for them to sell to us. So we create an incentive to create these industries here. Also, real quick, I just want to go back to that trade deficit thing. If we are the world's consumer, doesn't it make sense that we do run a trade deficit with most countries? And isn't that a healthy thing if that's the position we want to be in? If that's where we feel like the leverage exists?
I think that there's a very philosophical answer to this. I think
I like, and again, I don't know where these guys are getting these questions from, but I like how he's asking very, very good questions. And then I like how this retard who got lucky buying crypto in his entire fucking life and think that makes him qualified to literally give his opinion about any subject ever, and he shouldn't ever talk about anything ever. He should be banned from having a voice, okay? Because holy fucking AIDS, listening to this guy talk is actually excruciating. I like how he instantly switched up to, let's get philosophical, LOL. Good one. Dipshit.
We want to be in, if that's where we feel like the leverage exists?
I think that there's a very philosophical answer to this. I think the technocratic answer is you want to have the ability to change it as you see fit because it changes the incentives for countries to cooperate with America.
Okay, so just so I can understand that. America, I'm not sure exactly where we were before World War II, but we have enough manufacturing that on a dime, the entire country can turn into a military operation. Ford is rolling out tanks. Like, we have the ability to engineer and manufacture everything that we need to win a war. Right now, we are too dependent on outside factors. So we actually can't flip that switch if we need to. So it's like putting ourselves in a position where we can flip the switch, and that gives us way more bargaining power and leverage in the real world because we are not 100% reliant on these other countries.
Exactly right. And there's just a lot of hard work. I'll give you, you want to hear a crazy story?
Yeah.
In 2020, I had this kid pinging me constantly on Twitter. And he had worked for Elon building up the battery supply chain for Tesla, and he had left Tesla to go to business school. He was at Stanford. The kid was just like constantly just like replying me, whatever. So finally I'm like, right, just come to my office and we'll talk. And he's like, I think we need to build a domestic battery business in the United States to compete with the two Chinese national champions. And I was like, okay. So I started to learn about this problem, and it's like shockingly crazy. So we start the company, him and myself, a professor from Stanford, and this other guy who worked at Toyota. So, 4 reasonable people, okay? And we start this business in 2020. We're like, we're going to make domestic batteries. We get a deal with General Motors. They invest. They go on the board. Things are going well. And then we get to this place where, and this was under the Biden administration, we needed the approval of the DOE and the signaling from the DOE, the Department of Energy, that, yeah, this American company is not bullshit. We take a year. We go through. We stand in line. We play it exactly down the middle. We filed this like 600-page report. The consultants that they told us to pay, we paid. We did everything. Got rejected. I was like, okay, this makes no sense. You tell us like we need to like have this resilience, but instead this is not resilient at all. Fine. We keep moving forward, and we decide last year to reapply. Do the same thing. We get through the end of all of this, and we get picked. 125 companies apply. Gets down to like 25 finalists. These guys give they do an incredible job, by the way, the DOE employees, like of the diligence and stuff. Like, this was like, I've never seen anything like this. We go through proctology exam. It's like you wouldn't believe. We get it. Federal government gives us $100 million. Michigan gives us 50 to build this factory in the United States. And we're like, wow, we declared victory. We're like, that was the right thing to do. That was worth all the hard work. Now other people can pay attention. We can raise money. This is a hard problem to solve. It takes billions of dollars, okay? And it's like money isn't infinite, so I need other people to be beside me. And I needed the government. And then, when Elon goes into Doge, I find like, Stacey Abrams, spins out of like Biden, and in 30 days got a $2 billion grant.
For
to
what?
like buy appliances for like 25,000 people in Georgia. So, we have a lot of like cell phones here as well to blame for this. Like, that is an insane story. How did she get?
This was a whole ass. Are they referring to that whole study about reinvesting in communities to see the cost of like making them more energy efficient and all that bullshit? Because that was a whole ass like project. That wasn't just her personally going and buying microwaves for people.
20 times more than we did. We have a 50-person team that makes batteries to compete with the Chinese at the same quality. We got $100 million by a 2-year process. She started an application on June 1. June 30, you got $2 billion. How does that work in America? Is that right? That's not right.
How does that work?
Well, it's not working anymore, thank God, to Doge, but...
and I like how the guy even... The flagrant guy, he's asking good questions, whether he realizes it or not. He's asking really good questions, but this fucking guy just won't answer any of them.
That's not right.
What is that process?
Is that some cronyism?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of like there's a come along, pay along, play along.
Like, look, this guy doesn't even have an answer for him. He's asking a good question, and this dude doesn't even have an answer. He can't even answer the question. Like, what actually did happen there? Did you even fucking look into it? Did you do any due diligence whatsoever? Or are you just here to repeat propaganda talking points? Because this is all this is. This is just propaganda.
That, again, Trump is shutting down. Like, this is, look, you have to give the guy credit. He's been consistent. And the one thing that he's doing is he is closing these loopholes. That takes a lot of balls.
Okay, question. I've seen a lot on Twitter about everybody has their own opinion on like what he's actually trying to do, right? Some people are like they're tanking the market on purpose to get the debt yield down. Can you speak on this theory? I think Besant has been in a few interviews talking about it.
Yeah. So what are they talking about? So here's the thing: America owes people a lot of money. Okay, we owe. Oh my gosh, I want to say maybe $35 trillion to other people. Now, it's important to understand who are those other people and why did that happen?
Yeah.
So let's just say the 5 of us are running America. We all go off into our own separate rooms and, we come back with a plan. And Andrew, you're like, I want to spend $1 billion on defense. And then, Marcus, I want to spend $1 billion on healthcare. And I say, I want to spend, $2 billion on Social Security or whatever. And we tally it all up, right? And we're like, okay, to run America is going to cost $10 billion. How are we going to get that money? And, ever since like 1913,
it's a GoFundMe.
The answer is we're going to go to all the individuals in the United States to pay for it. By the way, just so you guys know, before 1913, okay, we had 120 odd years where all of that money, that $10 billion, whatever that number was at the time, it was all generated via tariffs. Okay, it was outside folks paying in to have the right to be in the United States. Then we would take that money and we would pay for healthcare.
He's even giving the Trump propaganda line on what a tariff is, paid by other people, outside people. Why? Also, like, you're talking about in the future, we need to fixate on like AI. That's the most important thing. Then why the fuck do we care how the government was funded in the early 1900s? Why is this our go-to?
We would pay for Social Security, we would pay for military, all that stuff. Okay, so anyways, fine. So here we are. But you add up all the amount of taxes we raise, and it only is $8 billion. So what do? You go and you borrow from somebody who's willing to lend you $2 billion, right?
So just to clarify, like that borrowing doesn't necessarily mean a bank. People can buy bonds. They can buy these treasury bonds. And isn't that a similar thing?
So what happens is, okay, we're like, okay, shit, we need to come up with $2 billion. Where do we get it? So what happens is the United States Treasury is allowed by law to then go into the market. Okay, I'll explain what that means in a second, and sell an IOU. Mm-hmm. Hey, this IOU is backed by the United States government. Full faith and fidelity of all of the assets that we own. Give me $2 billion. I'm going to take it. I'm going to fund this deficit, and I'm going to spend my $10 billion this year. We've been doing that basically forever. Add it all up, now we're at 30 some odd trillion dollars. Okay. Now, what is the problem with that? Well, that is a colossal interest rate payment. Imagine that you take out now a credit card every year, max it out. At some point, you're going to have an enormous interest payment, right? And
that doesn't even make sense. A large interest payment. If you're talking about an interest payment, are you talking about the percentage on the interest? Because that's one thing you could talk about. That's not what he should be talking about, and that's not really what he's talking about. But whether or not the payment is large is going to depend on your income or your assets, right? Why don't we ever talk about that? Like, is he just going to say 36 trillion, 36 trillion, 36 trillion? At the very least, shouldn't we be talking about interest as a percentage of GDP or something else? And then there's also the question of like, well, what should the debt be? These people never have an answer for that, or they'll say like it should be zero.
That is dictated by the interest rate that is tied to the credit card that you have. It's the exact same thing for the United States government. We have 30 some odd trillion of debt, and we have a really high APR.
Yeah, the APR is what right now?
Well, I think the blended is, I want to say like 5-6%, let's say. So, you're talking trillions of dollars in interest, okay? Which is a problem. So on top of that, these credit cards, assuming you have this credit card, it expires and you got to go and apply for a new one. Mm-hmm. That's what so every year, so right now in this year, America has $6 trillion of credit that is expiring that we don't have the money to pay for. So what do we need to do? We need to reborrow that money.
So issue more bonds.
So we have to sell bonds. So who are the buyers? The buyers are all these people around the world, central banks, pension plans.
Also us.
Yeah.
So yes, but asterisks. The thing that America, again, I go back to like, we are the star of the show. Okay. Everybody is levered to the United States. Everybody. What does that mean? If you go to Japan, Japan is way deeper in debt than we are. They have 2 times as much debt as we do relative to our GDP, relative to the amount of revenue that we make. And you would say, well, how's that possible? When Japan finances their debt, the overwhelming majority of the people that are supporting Japan are the Japanese companies, Japanese pension funds, Japanese individuals, your mom, your dad, buying the Japanese bonds. In America, it's not that. It's about a third are Americans, but 2/3 are everywhere. Okay, it's like the Saudi Aramco, it's Shell, it's Novartis, it's the Central Bank of Lesotho, it's China. China owns almost $1 trillion of our debt. So the whole point is, if you can bring the cost of borrowing down, we save ourselves a lot of money. We make the headache much smaller. Now, here's a huge problem that happened at the end of Biden.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, before you say that. So essentially, if we can lower the
APR,
if we can lower the interest payment, then
how much? What are we issuing this new debt for? How much would we even save? The answer is not really that much.
The end of every year, the money that we owe is much less, and then we can start chipping away at the principal instead of just paying the interest. Another important thing to understand is the more people buy treasuries, like
what he just said there, he's kind of got. It's chipping away at the principal. It's not relevant. The principal and interest are the same thing essentially. Once it's all just the same balance. If you want to chip away at the principal, quote unquote, then that means that you have to be paying off more than you are accruing an interest. And for that to happen, well, not just accruing an interest, but then what you're borrowing. I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with the interest. It has to do with what you're borrowing. So you can have this financed as low as you fucking want. You could have it literally 0.1% interest on the national debt. That doesn't fucking matter if you have a budget deficit in the government every fucking year, which we're going to have because Trump is, even if he doesn't get these new tax cuts, we're still going to have it. But he's also pushing for tax cuts as well. So it doesn't matter what your interest rate is. If you're still borrowing every single fucking year, you're never, ever, ever chipping away at the principal.
Lower the interest payment is on those treasuries. The less people that are buying treasuries, the higher it goes, right?
So you also, there's a whole bunch of other things that I don't know the answer to, but I definitely know this fucking retard doesn't know the answer to it. This guy, not the other guys. If it is the case that we're going to be, I'm taking very like basic like consumer credit understanding here, and supply demand. But if it was the case that we started to drop interest rates really low on new treasury bonds that we were selling, wouldn't it be the case that people also might just not buy them? Like I imagine that financial, like cash equivalent or store of value becomes much less lucrative if the interest rates are that low, especially if there are other investments on the planet to be made. Why would people even buy those bonds anymore? Now, traditionally, the U.S. has never had trouble financing itself because of issues, for reasons that this administration is trying to destroy, but...
Exactly.
If
This
you
is
can-
like this.
So
Exactly.
if you can, some people say if you can scare people in the equities market, meaning just the stocks, right? If you can scare them about stocks, if you can create uncertainty in the stock market,
Then they go buy treasuries.
people go,
and then
I just need some security. I need something back with the full, what is it, support and fidelity of the U.S. government. I need treasuries. They start dumping all that money into treasuries. You can reduce that yield, which is that interest payment. Now,
Yeah, but keep in mind that now you're also hurting your individuals in your country, but you're also hurting. Remember, and I'm not accusing him of doing it because I just don't know. This guy's name is Andrew. I'm not accusing him of being a hypocrite because I don't know his political background as much. But what I thought we were so worried about negative impact on capital. Again, I don't know what the magnitude of any of these things are, so I'm literally just spitballing. I could be way off and maybe these things don't matter, but let's again assume everything they're saying is correct. Okay, people retreat from the stock market and they start dumping all of their money into treasuries. Aren't we trying to get a historic amount of investment in the United States for new factories? Well, where is all of that extra capital going to come from if there's a massive flight from all of the markets into treasury bonds? Like, aren't you simultaneously trying to raise more capital than you ever have in all of human history, and you're causing capital to flee at max speed from a highly volatile market? Like, if intuitively none of this feels like it works. All of this just feels like the worst possible thing in the world. But
now, before we move on, I just want to ask one question. We initially, when this was mentioned, I guess a couple days ago by Trump, you saw that yield go down almost like a point, right? Or at least it clipped.
It was enormous. We went from like 450. Like I was worried that it could go to 5. Instead, when Trump said, guys, I'm doing this, I'm serious, it went from 450 to like 420. And then it went to 4. And then it went to like 390 something. And now it's right around back at 4.
Now, when it started to go back up again, some people thought that a big holder of U.S. treasuries, i.e. like a China or one of the other countries or companies they were talking about, purposely sold treasuries.
To flood the treasury market?
To flood the treasury market and then increase that yield, that interest payment again. Remember, the more that they sell, the more we got to pay out. So it's a form of like eco-terrorism.
is that true? If they sell it, I thought the things just continue to pay. Like the maturation date is what it is, right? I don't think anybody can force that, can they? But I could be wrong.
Is that bullshit or true?
I think it's bullshit, and I'll tell you why. There is no amount of money that you could spend that a country has in U.S. treasuries to sustain that kind of price manipulation in a market that big.
So it might be initial, but eventually it would start to...
Could you puke it out? Like, meaning the thing is, like, these markets are extremely efficient. Like, in betting, like sports betting, I used to be a big sports bettor. Like, these guys are all sharps, okay?
Yeah.
They know the line.
Yeah.
They know the edge. You're not getting an advantage over one day, over 5 hours. Like that's
got it. So it would be China literally unloading the $1 trillion in bonds that they have.
They wouldn't do that.
And they wouldn't do it. Of course, there's probably some sort of like competitive advantage they have owning that type of debt. Guys, we're gonna take a break for a second because I want to tell you one thing that tariffs do not affect: freedom of speech. Okay. Now, speaking can make you quite tired. I know that. Akash knows that. Mark knows that. Alex knows that. You can even get exhausted speaking your mind and your heart all day long in the greatest country in the world. And that's why Black Rifle, not just coffee, they also have energy drinks. For all of you guys who don't like coffee for whatever reason, frankly, I think you're retarded. But if you want energy drinks, Black Rifle has got your back. Look at this, 0 sugar, Project Mango, not to be confused with Project Paperclip or whatever that thing where we took all those Nazi scientists.
Wait, don't talk about that.
Quality.
Okay, I don't go this way. This is driving me crazy. And gotcha. If you were to unload in the bond market, then it would drive the demand for other things down, and so it could theoretically lower what people are willing to pay for it. Okay.